Hello everybody, Mannix here. This is going to be kind of a nostalgic review for me because this is one of my favorite knives ever. I've had it for years, I've had multiple versions of this. I would trade it, sell it, I would keep going back to it. This must be my fourth one. Maybe bought it 3 years ago or so. I'm using it constantly. It's always my go-to. I keep going back to it. I really like it. The Cold Steel Recon 1. This one happens to be the older model, so it's got the AUS 8A blade steel instead of the CTS BD1 Carpenter steel the new ones have. I think it was a change maybe 2 years ago, Cold Steel did. Better steel, but the price is nearly doubled. I don't mind the AUS 8A, I never had a problem with it. But it's a cheaper steel. So everything I'm going to say about this knife right here, if you want to get the newer ones, the current versions of the Cold Steel Recon 1s, everything I say in this review does apply to that except for the blade steel. Everything else is exactly the same, however. So let's begin. I don't remember what this retailed at. You could get them all day long at other websites anywhere from 50 to 60 bucks. Sometimes 45 if you were lucky, so that was pretty cool. This comes in the clip point and the spear point model, but you know me, I love the tantos. I really like tantos. I think they're super cool. And for this knife specifically, I think it matches it very well. It looks awesome. Weighs at 5.3 ounces, so not very heavy for what you're getting here, for the amount of strength and the size it is. Blade length is 4 inches on the nose, handle length 5 3/8 inches, which brings us a 9 3/8 inches overall length. Blade thickness is 3.5 millimeters. 3.5 millimeters. It is an all G10 handle scale knife. There's no steel liners or anything there. We have an aluminum backspacer right here, which is pretty cool. Triad lock, if you're not familiar with that, it's one of the strongest locking mechanisms in the whole world. We'll talk about that. We have a lopsided thumb stud. It's not quite dual. You can rotate it. You have to grab onto that and then crank down with a flathead screwdriver right there. I don't understand why they did that. I don't know why they just went with a dual thumb stud, but that's what Cold Steel does on a lot of their knives, if not all of them. It is tip-up carry, thank you very much. Also, swappable to the left side. They give you 2 pocket clips because this pocket clip's obviously it's lopsided, so if you put it on here it wouldn't fit correctly. Or it would, but it would just kind of swivel that way and look weird. So they give you 2 pocket clips for that reason. On the older models, they used to include 3 extra screws right here, but they don't anymore, I guess. Oh well. Tiny lanyard hole. It's got one, but that's small. Small lanyard hole. It'll still work though. A hole's a hole. Extremely comfortable. One of the most comfortable knives out there, I think. I love the cant right here that your thumb goes into. I like the 2 finger choils. Maybe it could be a little bigger, but it's not a big deal. It's nice cutouts. It's nice and rounded everywhere. Really secure grip. It's slim. It's a very slim knife, actually. I prefer the bigger, more hand-filling knives because I don't know. I like my hand. I like the feeling of grabbing a piece of clay and really squeezing on it, and then it's like you let go. Now you have like a molded. I don't know. The thicker knives, they're more hand-filling and they just feel more comfortable to me. There's more to hold on to. I like thicker knives, but a lot of people prefer the slim stuff, and I understand. For what this is, though, I don't mind. It's very balanced, lightweight for what you're getting. Now, here's something odd about the locking mechanism. It is extremely strong, but every single Recon 1 I've ever had has had this issue. Hear that? It's up and down play. Not that there's any room for the blade to wiggle, but when I push it, it's pushing something. I think it's pushing the lock bar. I don't know what it is, but every single Recon 1 I've had has done that. I don't understand it. So technically it's not blade play, but it's like I can push it. I don't understand why it does that. Lock never failed on me. It's still extremely strong. That's just bizarre. I don't get it. Carries just like this, upside down. Extremely comfortable. It's somewhat of a versatile knife. It's somewhat of an extreme knife. And what I mean by that is when I say extreme, like the handle, like an extreme knife to me is like a multiple choiled handle. That would be an extreme design. It'll be very comfortable for some people, and it will be very uncomfortable for other people, depending on the size of your hands. A versatile knife is basically like a bar. You know, it's not great. It's not going to be super comfortable, but it'll float everybody's boat at the end of the day. This is kind of a middle ground. It's in between both of them, and I think it's super cool. I think the design is just awesome. I like how you have a lot of reach. So your hand's not physically touching the blade at all, actually. You have a guard right there. It's just cool. Carries really nicely. It's got kind of a grippy G10 here. Very, very grippy. Cold Steels tend to be a lot more grippy than most of the other companies out there, other than like Emerson or something, but over time G10 softens with use, and this is actually on the softer side now. It's not as grippy. Like when you first pull a knife out and you feel that grippy G10, it's like super, super grippy. And as soon as you rub your thumb on it just a couple times, already it feels softer. That's what this did. That's the case with all of them. But it's not going to slip out of your hands, that's for sure. I don't know why Cold Steel always does this, even on their new knives. They make these cutouts in the handle, but not the bar itself. And it basically adds no traction whatsoever. It's really weird. Cold Steel, why do you do that? I don't understand it. I don't really care either. You can also choke up on it like this if you'd like. Get a little bit closer to that blade right there. Here's one thing I don't like about it. You can see there's a little choil right there where the edge begins. Which is nice and all. When there's a choil there, that means you know exactly where the edge is, instead of the blade just kind of slowly sloping into the tang, or sorry, the ricasso. But when you look at it very closely, it's right here at the tip of it, it's not actually an edge, it's flat. So I don't understand what the point of that choil is when it kind of flattens anyway. It's kind of bizarre to me, but carries well. I got sidetracked there. I was about to talk about how it carried, then I talked about the texture of the G10. I like the stubby little pocket clip, actually. I like it. It's not in the way. I think it's cool. Some people think that's weird, the little pocket clips. I like them. Some people complain about the pocket clips being too tight in the Cold Steels. I've actually never had that problem. I think some of them do, but I don't think that's a normal thing. There were some reviews where some people said that it was a real chore getting the knife out of the pocket. I never had that issue. I got some sweatpants on. Slipping it in, and then bam. No issues with it. It's a little bit on the tighter side, more so than a lot of other knives, but that means it's more secure. You don't have to worry about it ever coming out of your pocket. You got about that much poking out right there. A lot of people complain about the grippiness of the G10 down here, kind of ripping up their pants. Well, if it's tight, if it's a tighter pocket clip, yes. I personally haven't had that issue on most of my Recon ones. Some of them I did, but every single case I always take off the pocket clip, remove the hardware screws here, lightly sandpaper this area right here, and then just put it all back together, and bada boom, bada bing. I don't have the issue anymore. This one I actually did not do the sandpaper trick with, though. I can feel it feels exactly the same. So I'm not having any issues with this one in particular, but I guess it depends on how tight the pocket clip is. Really cool combat style, versatile, big ol', just a cool knife. It's just a super cool knife. I think it's cool. It's not the most practical. Lockback knives are slower than liner locks or axis locks or just about every other lock in the universe almost, but they're stronger. They're cool. Now the Triad lock, if you're not familiar with it, it's the same thing as a lockback, but you can see an additional stop pin right there. So it's a lockback with a stop pin. You can just look up Triad lock to see the mechanics of it, but essentially it's three pieces. So you have the end of the blade right here, the stop pin, and then the lock bar. And they all kind of work together. They all notch and fit together, and makes it virtually impossible for that locking mechanism to fail just by adding that stop pin. All the positive force of the knife ends up going to the stop pin, the heat-treated stop pin, and the negative force going on the spine gets transferred to the lock bar and then back to the stop pin again. So it's all this kind of like three-part working locking mechanism where it divides the amount of force all of the parts take more. So essentially it lasts longer and is stronger than something that has less division. It's a cool invention. Really awesome. So simple. Just throwing a little stop pin in that lockback makes it like 3 times stronger. It's insane. But because of how strong it is, this locking mechanism is never going to fail. The blade will snap before the locking mechanism fails on you. So yeah, if that's the case, you've got a strong locking mechanism. It's good enough. It's a really cool, overbuilt, strong knife, and it's very light too, which is cool. You know, it's going to choke down right here. I don't feel like it's going to get knocked out of my hands too easily, so you want to do the whole combat thing, get more reach right here. Tanto points are good for impact cutting and tip ripping. I love Tanto blades, they're cool. The AOS 8A blade steel, I think it's a little bit better than like 8CR13 MOV. It's a little better than 440C. It's better than all those. It's not the greatest. It's kind of just like a middle ground. I would say 8CR13 MOV and such, they're more like middle, lower ground. This is like middle, medium blade steel. Pretty good edge retention. Pretty strong. Gets very, very sharp. Razor sharp. Out of the box, these are very, very sharp knives. As long as you keep them stropped, you're not going to have any issues. Now, eventually, when they get dull, if you use them that much, even after stropping, yeah, you resharpen it. But other than that, I've never had an issue with AOS 8. And Cold Steel, they used to use AOS 8A, the A standing for anodized. I believe it's maybe somewhat harder, or maybe it has slightly more rust resistance, but it's not a big deal. If anything, it's probably the same exact thing as far as performance goes. We have what they call the Tough X coating, which is basically Teflon. Very cheap coating. It's like one notch above paint, but it's a lot worse than titanium nitride or anything like that. You kind of feel it's like it's lubricated. It almost feels like it's kind of, you can see it wore off. I use this knife a lot for years, and that's all that wore off. Some people's wore off a ton, mine didn't. So it's fairly durable. It's really cool looking. I like it all worn like that. The little war wounds on it. Used knife blade wear. It's cool. The coating will also help prevent rust, which is cool. Huge upside there. Yeah. Kind of went all over the place with this review, but if you get the new ones, it's everything I just said except the blade steel is better, and it's a little more expensive. That's basically it. Really cool knife. Really cool, stylistic, awesome, functional, but not quite as fast, and maybe not as practical as most of the other folders out there for the money, but it's stronger and cooler. It's more tactical, I think. Anyway, that is it. That is the Cold Steel Recon 1.